Hi everyone, it's Rachel from the Shades of Orange. Today I'm finally filming my Q&A, which I promised. This is part of my celebration of hitting 1,000 subscribers. And before I get started, I just want to say a real thank you to everyone who has subscribed to my channel. I know other people say this, but it really does mean a lot to know that people care about what I have to say about books and are interested in what I'm reading. And personally, this has been a really tough year for me for reasons I won't get into in this video, but being able to go and have a place online where I can really share my love of books and reading, and honestly, doing this and being part of the community is one of my favorite parts of my life. And I just want to say a huge thank you, because it's really gratifying when I get comments and get to interact with other booktubers and other readers. So yeah, I just want to really let you know how much I appreciate each and every one of you. Alright, now on to the questions. I'm going to start with the book related ones, and you'll notice I am going to be reading off my tablet just so I remember the questions. The first one is from Caitlin from Zombie Eats Books, who asks, who is my favorite author? For this one, a lot of you can probably guess, but the answer to that is going to be good old Gillian Flynn. I have read and loved all of her books, including her novella. Gone Girl is my personal favorite, but I love all 3 of her novels and cannot wait to see what she writes next. Easily my favorite author. She can do no wrong by me. And the other question that Caitlin asked was, what is the most recent book that made you cry? And for this, I actually went through my Goodreads shelves, and to the best of my memory, the last book that made me cry, it's a little bit of a cliche, but I'm not that emotional when it comes to books, is The Fault in Our Stars by John Green. Next, Sarah M. asked, what is one book cover that you think matches a book you have read the best? And I ended up going with The Martian by Andy Weir. I just think it's exactly what you'd expect when you see this cover. I just think it's bang on and was a great cover choice. Now, the other question that Sarah M. asked is, do you use bookmarks or dog-ear books? And I definitely use bookmarks. Most of my books come from the library, but even when I'm reading my own books, I always use a bookmark. And she asked what my favorite bookmark was. My favorite is honestly the only proper bookmark I own, and that is this picture of the Eiffel Tower. My husband was in a bookshop with me one day and said, you don't have a single actual bookmark. I'm always using scraps of paper around the house. So he got me this, and I just really like it. I've always wanted to go to Paris, so it's a reminder of a trip that I hope to take one day. Next, Bookish Infection asked, what's my least favorite genre? And there's some genres that I don't read a lot, but I still like them, like fantasy and sci-fi. I don't read a ton of those genres, but I wish I did. I really like them as a category. So for least favorite genre, I'd probably go with something like short stories or poetry. As many of you know, I'm not an incredibly literary reader, and those books just tend to go right over my head. So those would be 2 options I could give. The other question she asked is, do you read fan fiction? Unfortunately, the answer is no, so I don't have more to elaborate there. And she also asked, what is my OTP, or one true pairing? And honestly, I don't really ship relationships in books the way other people do. I really had to think about it, and I ended up going back to a book I've already mentioned, saying The Fault in Our Stars, you know, Hazel Grace and Augustus Waters, but I'm not as hardcore into other people's, you know, one true pairing. I'm like, yeah, you know, this is a couple I like, so hopefully that's a sufficient answer. Now, the next 2 questions were kind of related, so I'm going to talk about them at the same time. The first was from Monze, who asked, what are some books that I actually find creepy? And I love this question because it's something I talk about where a lot of other people on BookTube talk about books and call them so creepy. And then I read them and I'm like, I didn't really find that creepy. And then it's kind of tied in with Sylvia, so I'm going to answer them at the same time. Sylvia from A Suitcase Full of Books asked, any thrillery books that turned your stomach inside out? And because they're sort of related, I'll answer them at the same time. A couple books that I actually found creepy. One I mentioned recently was Creep by Jennifer Hiller, and one of my favorite parts about it was this one scene, which I won't spoil, but all I'm going to say is it involved a wall. And I was reading in the evening, it wasn't even that late, and like it was just the creepiest image of what she was describing. And it did really kind of get my stomach a little bit twisted, just going like, oh, that's so creepy. Another book which I really love and had some good creepy moments in it is The Winter People by Jennifer McMahon. And there's just some really creepy things going on in this book that actually were like a little bit, you know, just weird what was going on, some kind of grosser things that happened, and, you know, just descriptions of what was going on. I don't read a lot of horror, but that book edged on the side of creepy. Didn't really turn my stomach, but definitely actually gave me some chills, so definitely recommend that one as well. The most stomach-turning book I could describe would probably be Dark Places. I've read others, but I tend to DNF them, but this is one I did finish. And the reason I call this stomach-turning is that it involves some chapters where there's young children that are potentially in inappropriate situations with creepy older people, and those kind of books I tend to DNF. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't, but it's not typically the kind of thing I want to read about. Because it's Gillian Flynn, I did push through. I got to a point where I was like, where is this book going? I was so freaked out. I was like, I don't want to read this book, but I love Gillian Flynn, and I decided to trust her and kept going, and it was absolutely worth it. The book was, of course, fantastic. This is a 5-star read for me. But on the, not so much creepy as much as that like disturbing, do I want to read about these dark topics? Where is this book going? This is definitely one of the more stomach-turning books. I really considered DNFing it at one point because I was like, I don't think I want to read where this is going. And she completely flipped it around, and it was so well done. So highly recommend that one. I can talk more, you know, if you want to private message me, I can talk about spoilers, but that would be my answers for those questions. Switching gears to some non-book related questions. Sylvia also asked, do you have any non-bookish hobbies? Honestly, most of my hobbies are really book related. I read, obviously I booktube. I am also been in and out of different book clubs in the last years, and I'm also involved in my library's board. So I'll talk about that more in the next question, but definitely a lot of my hobbies honestly are about books. But for some non-bookish ones, a couple things I'll mention are I actually play Dungeons and Dragons. I have a group of friends that play pretty much every week for the last maybe 3 years. I also really into fitness. I do a lot of Jillian Michaels workouts, and I also have a Dance Dance Revolution pad in my house, again really nerdy. So I really enjoy playing DDR, so I do a bunch of that. I play a lot with my Hedgehog. I also play video games. I'm really nerdy basically. And I think those are the main ones. Otherwise, I'm spending a lot of time recently working on renovating my house, so that's been keeping me busy for a lot of my weekends recently. And the last 3 questions are all from Patty from I Smell Books. The first question she asked was how me and my husband met. And we basically met through mutual people we knew. My husband was roommates and longtime friends of my sister's then boyfriend, now husband. They basically, you know, were good friends. So when my sister was hanging out with her boyfriend, she was also hanging out with his friends, and so they would come over to our house. And there's a 3-year age difference between us, which isn't a big deal now, but at the time I was only in like grade 9 when he was in grade 12. So I remember noticing when my sister brought home this like hot, you know, like friend of her boyfriend's, but he doesn't really remember me at all, like, you know, because I was just a kid sister at the time. So it was definitely a one-way interest when we first met, but when we really kind of talk about when we officially kind of met and became interested in each other was when I was, I guess it would have been, I think 18, and we met basically, or re-met through a wedding of, again, mutual friends of my sister. We were both invited, and I was bored at the wedding, and he remembers me saying, will anyone dance with me? And he said he decided to take pity on me and dance with me, and we just had a lot of fun. Now, her next question was asking if I worked in a library. She remembered that I was on the library board and was asking about my experiences being on the library board and wherever I worked. So kind of 2 questions. First, I'll say I don't actually work at a library, but she was correct that I am on the library board for my local community, and I'm actually the treasurer on that board. It's a volunteer position, and as a treasurer I have a lot of additional experiences or responsibilities where I do the bank recs, prepare financial statements for the board meetings, and approve the check requests, all of that good stuff. So I really enjoy it. I highly recommend if you're looking for a way to volunteer. If you're like me, and you probably are if you're watching BookTube, it's a great way to give back to the community. I really am glad to be volunteering in a way that promotes my local library, because I feel so strongly about the importance of libraries. Now, what I actually get paid to do for a living is I work for a small software company where I do a little bit of everything. I do coding, report design, I do software support, so people call us with questions about our software and I answer them on the phone. I do training, as well as the last year I've actually started doing a lot of sales, so I'm doing everything from cold calling to presentations to running seminars. I've learned so much in this job. I absolutely love it. Now, the last question she asked was, how is caring for Kimmy? Is a hedgehog cage similar to cleaning up after small animals like hamsters, rabbits, etc.? And I'll give you the short, and then I'll kind of show you what his cage looks like. I'll try to insert an image here. But basically, he's super easy to take care of. If we want to play with him, we kind of take him and wake him up, and that's okay. So he has his own cage. We use basically a giant Rubbermaid container that we got from Walmart. Obviously, we don't put the lid on it because that would be cruel. And for bedding, a lot of people will use like wood shavings similar to like a hamster, but we really spoil him, and we have read that some of these like wood shavings are very hard on their lungs, so we decided to go with fleece bedding, which means I have to wash it every weekend, which is super fun, but totally worth it. So in terms of care, it's really simple. Basically, we refill his water every night. We give him a mixture of dry, high quality cat food with lots of protein and mealworms. They're also supposed to be able to eat fruits and veggies, but he's super picky and won't touch the stuff, so oh well, we try. And otherwise we just try to pick him up every day so that he stays socialized. So a lot of times that just means putting him in our lap when we're reading or watching TV or playing a video game. And when he's more active and ready to move around, then we kind of let him run around in the kitchen or a spare bedroom and kind of run off some extra energy. It's really good for their minds to let them explore. So in the summer, we'll even take him outside to the park and let him sniff around in the grass. But otherwise, they're super easy. Like if we were to be gone for an entire day, as long as he had food, he would be fine. We definitely try to keep interacting with him on a regular basis, but definitely low maintenance. For my husband and I, he is like the perfect pet. He's really become our little family and stuff, so we're absolutely obsessed with him, and both think hedgehogs are pretty much the best pet ever, and we'll probably always have hedgehogs now that we've had one. That is all the questions. Thank you so much to everyone who took the time to leave one for me to answer. If anyone else has any more questions, book related or otherwise, feel free to leave them down below. I'll probably just answer them there, but otherwise, thanks so much for watching. Have a good one. Okay, bye.